This week we're going to learn about how to insert APA in-text citations into your documents. I have provided a handout to help you with this, and it is in the APA reference module, which you can find at the end of all your modules in Canvas after all the weekly modules. It has some important notes at the top for things that students tend to have the most difficulty with. It shows you down here in this column the types of citations, so you'll notice that there are different formats for quoting than there are for paraphrasing, and sometimes different formats if you're quoting or paraphrasing one author versus two or more. It also shows you the difference between an in-text citation and a signal phrase, because you will need both. The signal phrase is simply something that indicates that I'm now providing information from an author. Here's the author's name. According to works perfectly fine, or as author so-and-so said, also works perfectly fine. All right, let's go now and look at the sample paper. If you are simply paraphrasing, all you have to do is provide the author's last name and year. If you are quoting, you need the author's last name, year, and page number or paragraph number. For sources that do not have a page number, you do need to count paragraphs. That is a requirement of APA, but you will find in some of your upper level courses, as students are starting to paraphrase more anyway, they will drop that requirement. But again, if you are paraphrasing, it's author and year. If you are quoting, it's author and year and page or paragraph number for sources that do not have a page. All right, let's look at some of the variations here. All right, so this is a source sentence that's been quoted. And so we have our author, year, and page number. That's the base requirement. So just say that to yourself 5 times. An APA in-text citation is author, year, page number, author, year, page number, author, year, page number, author, year, page number, author, year, page number. There are only 3 elements separated by commas. We should be able to remember that. All right, sometimes you're going to have more than one author. So you'll see this right here. We have Thiel and Pounder, both created the document that was paraphrased or quoted here, and so we use the ampersand between those. If you did refer to Thiel and Pounder up in the sentence, it would be Thiel and Pounder said that. There you go. All right, so and up here in the sentence, and ampersand if you have 2 authors in the in-text citation. Now, if you have 3 or more authors, you get to start using the et al. Et al is Latin for and others, and it must be typed correctly. So there's the author's last name for the first author that was listed, and then we have et al, meaning and others, and there is no period after et because it's not an abbreviation. And then there is a period and then a comma after all because this all stands for the Latin word for others. We're paraphrasing in this sentence, so there was no page or paragraph number. All right, so let's say you have no author. What are you going to put in instead? Well, then you put the title of what you read. Again, this is paraphrased, so the page number was left off. If the thing that you paraphrased or quoted was provided by an organization that never uses authors, then go ahead and give the organization name as your author. If you have, like I do here, an organization name that is long, spell it out the first time, and then in brackets, not parentheses, but brackets, you can then put their abbreviation, the comma, and your year. Again, if you're quoting, you'll add the page and paragraph number. After the first time you've done that, every in-text citation from that point on can just say NSTA, comma, year, and page or paragraph number if you're quoting, and no page or paragraph number is necessary if you're paraphrasing. I don't think anybody really cares if you add the page and paragraph number for both quotes or paraphrases. The point is just that you're only allowed to leave off the page or paragraph number if you are paraphrasing. Okay, if you have no year at all, then you have to type ND for no date. Let's go down here. If you have no page numbers, you can see this one right here. That's how you will count the paragraphs and put in PARA for your quotes. If you quoted from multiple paragraphs, you're going to add an S here and then put your paragraph number range in just like this. If what you quoted had more than 40 words, then you're going to do what's called a block quote. So you're going to precede that by a complete sentence. I like to use a complete sentence followed by a colon. And then you will do a double indent. In other words, an indentation of about 10 spaces. Use this key up here if you're typing in Word. There is a similar option in Google Docs. Because you are doing this double indentation to show that it's a block quote, you do not put in quotation marks, so those have to be removed. The other special thing that's done with a block quote is the period is moved from here over to before the in-text citation. So when the in-text citation comes at the end of a sentence, the period should always go after it. Here's an example, let's see if I can find it, of an indirect, there it is right here, an indirect quote. So Selden is the person that you were quoting, but you didn't read a book or article by Selden, you read a book or article by Pounder. In other words, Pounder quoted Selden. So you have to show that to your reader, and the way that you do it is you will say Selden as cited in Pounder, and then just continue with your normal year and page or paragraph numbers. There are two ways to do these in-text citations. One is called a parenthetical. This is what you're familiar with. Here's an example of that right here. And the other is called a narrative. So I'm going to actually come down here and see if I can find some space and type an example of that for you. So let's say I want to use the common parenthetical. So here's my quote, and then there's my author, year, and I'm quoting, so I have to give a page or paragraph number. Okay, so this is a normal parenthetical citation. I could, though, do a narrative, and that's where you give the year right next to the author so that the reader can tell immediately how current your information is. Since the author and the year are already here in the sentence, then you can just delete them if you like out of the in-text parenthetical citation at the end. So when we have all of the information here at the end, we call it parenthetical. When we divide it up into a double citation, we call that narrative. It's a nice idea to do this so that the readers get to immediately see the year that something was published. That's especially helpful if you're writing about a topic where there's been some event that was so significant that it created kind of a time dividing line, such as if you're writing about in Oregon police response to marijuana users. It would make a really big difference to readers if you were talking about reports that preceded, I think it was 2019, when the smoking and use of marijuana was made legal. There are many different ways to indicate your signal phrases that you're now starting to quote or paraphrase your source. If we go back up to the top here, I bolded some of these. Darwin referred to this idea, that's one way. Sporin et al., again, we have 3 or more authors, so we're not spelling them all out here, we're just using the et al., whether it's in the signal phrase or in the in-text citation. And we're using Sporin et al. Merely noted here. There's another way that we have signaled to the reader that information about a source is coming. You can just use according to if that works for you as well. According to Sporin et al., the SETs can be found at almost every institution, blah, blah, blah. Again, note that because the author was already up here in the sentence, the writer did not put the author in the in-text citation. You could if you wanted to, but it is allowed for you to leave it out if it's already there. Now, if you have 2 or 3 sentences in a row from the same source, you don't have to cite at the end of every one of those sentences. Look at this example right here. So we have, that's not the example I wanted to show you. All right, so let's just look at a different one. So let's pretend that, let's say here, I'm going to just copy this a couple times to show you what I mean. So let's pretend that we had 3 separate sentences, all of different words, of course, and they all came from Davis et al. So that's fine to put the in-text citation after the last sentence that refers to him, as long as you have a signal phrase so that we know when you're done with another source or your previous information. All right, so now I would have a signal phrase, and this is working almost like a fence. Here is the beginning of the information that came from a source, and here is the end, so the reader knows that this is a unit. Sometimes authors are not quite as careful to do that if they have the last sentence before the new information cited. So the idea is people know the information preceding to this came from Pounder, and they can safely assume that all of this information then up to the citation comes with Davis. It is just a little bit clearer, however, if you go ahead and put in the single phrase. Okay, that's what we need to learn, and you're going to have an exercise this week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.